Hey everybody at Pete and C, thank you for attending my session, or if you couldn't make it, I thank you for watching this video. So the session is a slow go approach to Google Classroom. And we only had an hour today, and so I know I probably demoed some of these things already, but I wanted to make sure you had the full PD, and that way you can take this back and please feel free to share it with your administrators, share it with your colleagues or other teachers. Really the goal for this presentation is a slow, easy walkthrough explaining what Google Classroom is and how it works. Thanks for joining me. Classroom.google.com, and of course you can get there by typing that in the Omni bar up here or using the Google Apps Launcher and selecting the Classroom icon. And it brings you to this landing page, and from here we can see all the different Google Classrooms that I have. And there's no limit to the number that you can have. You can have multiple ones. Now, one of the things I do recommend is that you only keep a Google Classroom for a marking period, a semester. It's going to make it a lot easier than the next year when you try to move materials over. I find that teachers that use the same Google Classroom for the entire year, by the time we get down to May and June, it's getting really cluttered and complicated. And sometimes it's nice just to be able to start fresh. So don't feel like you need to keep the same one the whole year. You can, whatever, if there's breaks in your year that make sense for you, that's what I'd recommend. Now, once you have, let's say you have some classrooms from previous years, or maybe you created one a while ago and you want to get rid of it. Either way, I never delete anything. Everything that I'm going to do, I'm going to archive. And to do that, you're going to come up to these three little dots. And of course, anytime you see these three little dots, we call them snowmen, or three horizontal lines. That's Google's little way of telling you that, hey, there's a menu here. So if you wanted to get rid of these or to kind of move them out of your view, we're going to archive them. And so when you click on these three little dots, you have the option to archive. And what this is going to do is it's going to kind of lock your classroom down. And this is really important because it prevents kids from being able to kind of have a back channel in an unmoderated classroom. So you do want to, once you're done with the class, you really should archive it. And it also cleans up this whole space right here. But here's a great thing, the data remains, all the assignments remain. So you can continue to grab things that you have already created and reuse them, so it saves you time in the long run. So that's how you archive. And now Google, as you create them, is going to put them in here, but you can use the three little dots in the Move tool, and you can shuffle the order around if you like them in your bell schedule. If you prefer them alphabetically, you can do that as well, which is really nice. You can also drag and drop them, which is a brand new feature, which is really, really exciting. You'll also notice that you have the ability to copy. Now, if you don't see the copy function, that tells me that you're probably using an old version of Google Classroom. One of the things I mentioned in today's professional development was this platform has completely changed over the past 6 months to a year. Google's put a lot of work into it and a lot of new features, and so a lot of classrooms that existed prior to the update, specifically in August, and this is one of them, you notice that it doesn't have the copy feature. So you definitely want to be using the new classroom, so that way you get the copy feature, because what the copy feature allows you to do, yes, we can reuse individual posts and assignments, and I'll show you how to do that when we get into Classroom. But imagine being able to take all your marking period 1 assignments and reuse them for that second year. And it's easier, instead of having to bring an entire year's worth of assignments over, if you're just bringing that 1 marking period over. It's going to make it a lot more manageable on the back end. So I really do encourage you guys to split up your Google Classrooms over the course of the year. That's going to make it a lot easier in year 2 and year 3. And that's where you're going to see significant time saving too, which is really nice. Now, the first thing I want to point out is on the left-hand side, we have this little menu here. And from that little menu, we get this little popped up. And from here, this always remains. And so I can jump into my different classes from here. we have a calendar. Google automatically creates a Google Calendar for each Google Classroom class, and it does this automatically, which is phenomenal. And this is a calendar that you have and that students have as well, and this allows the students to really do some time management and to look at their schedule, so that's a really great feature. Underneath the calendar we have the to-do option, and this is a great tool for grading for teachers because it allows you to see all the assignments, and you have this little drop down. You can choose to see whether you want to see all your classes or one particular class, but allows you to see all your assignments, who turned them in, who didn't. And a lot of times, sometimes teachers will create an assignment and there's nothing that the kids are actually turning in, or maybe they turned it in a different way. So it does allow you to mark an assignment as reviewed, and this way you don't have it as like a pending assignment. So this is a really great way to stay on top of your grading without having to jump into Classroom, because I know sometimes Classroom can get a little crazy. We'll talk about this. So this is a nice organization tool for teachers. Back to this menu here on the left, we have our classes. Now, I talked about in the beginning archiving old classes. I said that we don't delete them, we just move them away. And here we can see all my old archived classes. I can always come back to these classes. I can unarchive them or restore them, bring them back from the dead. But I can also continue to use any posts in there without having to really touch them. So because we have unlimited storage as teachers, I don't really advocate ever to delete anything, because if you ever needed to go back and grab a sample of a student work, or if maybe they've graduated, moved on, and another school, another teacher, maybe the high school, calls down and says, hey, we need that assignment, it's already there, and it provides a really easy way for you to access it. And certainly if you ended up deleting this classroom, all that student work would also get deleted as well. So don't delete anything, just leave them sit here. The last thing I want to talk about in this menu is all the way down at the very bottom, this little settings cogwheel. Now, Google's made actually a lot of changes here. Previously, you only had an option to turn on and off email, and every time I'm doing this professional development, I have to indicate the fact that you will still get email. This does not turn off your email. It only disables Google Classroom from sending email, so there's always some disappointed faces when I tell them that. But the nice thing is we now can customize what emails Google Classroom is generating and sending to us. And this is especially helpful if you're in as a co-teacher, or if you're in your next door neighbor's best friend's grade level partner's classroom as well. Or if you're an administrator and you've asked the teachers to invite you into their classroom so you can see what's going on, you don't necessarily want to get emails every time someone's turning in something or something like that. So you can really customize what options you'd like to turn on and off. Some teachers only want emails for late submissions. Some people don't. They're just going to rely on that big red late button. So you can really turn these on and off. I know as a teacher we already get enough email, so if you are bombarded, this is where you're going to go to disable some of them. And like I was saying, if you are a co-teacher, now when I click on this class notifications, we see a little drop down here. So now this is really helpful if you're in multiple classes, specifically as a co-teacher. You can turn on or off email for specific classes, and so that's a really nice, helpful feature. So we're going to jump back to the main classroom homepage, and I just want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing right here. So obviously we have the course title, the number of students. Now in this white space right here, this is where you'll be able to see what is due or upcoming, and students see the same view, which is really great. Down here at the very bottom, we have a shortcut to our gradebook. We also have a shortcut to the folder in Google Drive, and that's where everything lives. Now, some teachers really like working in that, and they do. I traditionally don't, but this is what works best for you. Now, if you haven't created a classroom yet, you're going to want to do that and follow along with me as I go through this presentation. So that way you can see it and play with it yourself. Now, to create a classroom for the first time, you're going to come up to this little plus button. Now, when you click it, you're going to see two options. You should see Join Class and Create Class. If you only see Join Class, that means your Google administrator needs to verify you as a teacher in the admin console. That's what they need to do. I have a link on our AOP Tech YouTube page that walks them through how to do that. But if you only see join a class, and that's what kids are going to see, that's what students are going to see. Students cannot create a class, only join. So go ahead and click on the Create a Class button. And here we have the little pop-up. We have class name. This is required, and we see as soon as I start typing, the Create button turns on. Now the rest of this section, subject, room number, those are totally optional. I see some teachers that do put in the subject and the section, room number. Sometimes they put in like helpful advice for the kids. For example, we're on the second floor, or class meets in the library. So certainly something like that. But don't worry, just for right now, call it demo or test or whatever you need to call it. We can always come back in and fill these in later, so you're not constrained by that. So now you're going to go ahead and click Create. I'm going to jump into my Google Classroom. So here I am in my Google Classroom. Now if you titled it something like History or Math or Science, Google may have chosen a background for you. Certainly you can change that by coming over here to the Select the Theme button, and it'll pop up a whole bunch of really cool backgrounds, which you can go through. You also can upload a photo. I have some teachers where they will actually take a photo of the kids and put the kids there, so it's the kids looking at the kids, which is very meta, but they seem to really like it. So certainly there's those, or you can download literally any photo from the internet and upload it there as well. But I do like bright colors, backgrounds, because for me this is a way that I can do a quick scan of the classroom. If I see colorful jelly beans on their screen, I know they're in the right place. So I do tend to use bright colored backgrounds. It also is a nice reminder for the kids. I'm like, hey, you should see bright colored jelly beans on your background. If you don't, you're in the wrong place. So it's very helpful for them. Now coming across the top, we have Stream, Classwork, People, and Grades. But we're actually going to start right here on this little cogwheel. So one of the big changes Google made is they consolidated all the settings and put them into one spot, and this is the spot they put them. So here we have our class name, we have that section room number thing here, so this is where you could edit it. Right down here we have our class code. Now we can actually get our class code in another place as well, and I will show you that in a second. I'm very finicky about my class codes. I do not like any codes with L's, 1s, 0s, O's, Q's. It takes too long. Kids are confused. Is that an L? Is that a 1, Mr. Hines? Don't have time for that. So, now certainly if you are happy with this code, on the first day of class, you could come in here and click Display, and it will pop up on the screen. And then if you get the blind kids sitting in the back, you can make it even bigger because of course they're sitting in the back. I wear very thick glasses myself. Now this code I'm very happy with, but let's say it did have an L, an O, a 0, a 1 in it. I will sit here and hit the reset button until it's a code that I like. And this just makes it easier for the kids when they're typing it in. It's less confusion. And it seems to go a little easier, and you may have to do this. I mean, obviously I'm sitting here clicking a couple times. Okay, I found a code I like. Now beneath there we have the option for stream. Only teacher can post and comment. We have a little drop down with 3 other options. Now, I have some teachers that leave this on for students can post and comment the entire time. This is great, especially if you like to do digital discussions and have conversations and really give the kids some ownership. That's a great thing. I also have had classrooms myself where I know that's going to not be a good option. I don't want to have the kids just posting randomly. And so I'll say only I can post and comment. Now the nice thing is, let's say you do want to have that digital conversation one day. Well, you come in here for that one day, you switch it to students can comment or students can post and comment. You have that digital conversation, the class ends, and then you come back in here and switch it to only teacher can post and comment. It doesn't have to remain static for the whole year. The next tool we have here is the show deleted items. This is if you were to create a post and then delete it, and maybe you wanted to see it again, or if you were to delete like a student comment, you could actually enable this and re-see that comment or that post. This is a very personal preference issue. Some people, it defaults off. That's where most people leave it. Underneath here, we have the ability to enable guardian summaries. Now, for a lot of reasons, I'm not a huge fan of this. And the reason being, if you click on the C example there, you can see why. The reason being is because teachers or parents and guardians aren't going to actually see what they want to see. It includes missing work, upcoming work, and class activity. And certainly that's nice, but you'll notice the fact that it only includes like that brief title and the directions. It doesn't actually include the assignments themselves. Parents can't click on this. They can't open it. They can't see any of the work that the students have done. And I know that's really what mom or dad want to see. Is they want to be able to see, well, what did my son or daughter do in your class? What are the grades? What are the feedback you provided? So here's how I handle that. Traditionally, if I have a parent that wants to see, what did my kid do? Well, I'm going to tell them, like, have your son or daughter log in. They can show you exactly what's going on, exactly the assignments. And now I've kind of created an environment to have that parent-child conversation that goes on. I do not advocate for parents getting their sons or daughters Google login. Because for me as a teacher, if I'm in classroom, I want to be communicating with the student. If a parent wants to communicate with me, they either need to do that through the administration, the guidance department, or they're sending me an email directly. So I am very hesitant to say, like, oh, just get your son or daughter's password. I know there are parents out there that will do that, but I certainly don't want to advocate that. If you still have the parent, they really want to know, like, well, what's going on, that's when I'm going to go to guardian summaries. The other reason I'm really hesitant to do that, this is going to require you to manually enter in that parent's email, and I don't want to have to do that for 30 kids times 5 classes. No, I don't have time for that now. Certainly, if your school district has purchased, there are some third-party tools available that will integrate with your SIS if you're using PowerSchool or Gradebook or Option C or something like that will integrate with Google Classroom. But again, I'm not going to sit there and type in all the parents' email addresses because that is way too time consuming. Now underneath here we have the Gradebook settings. This was a brand new update that Google just put out. And the nice thing is, and this really depends on how you're using Google Classroom. Some people use the Gradebook here as their primary gradebook. Some people already have the school SIS, like I said, PowerSchool, Option C, all those ones. But sometimes the nice thing is I wanted to, because I had category weights or something like that, so I wanted my Google Classroom grades to match the real correct, like, PowerSchool grades. And so certainly we now have the ability to add in category weights, add in multiple categories, and so certainly if that's something you do, you can do that. You can also just do a total points or no overall grade at all, where it's just grading the individual assignments themselves and not calculating their grade, because I know that can be confusing for kids when they're like, oh, Google Classroom says I have an A, and in the school's formal grade book I have a B minus, or I have a because that real grade book has those other things, the participation, those other grades. And so this kind of is a nice, if you'd like them to look similar, this is where you can kind of set that up. So I'm going to X out of here. And let me just did not make any changes. Now I mentioned that you could get the class code in that little cogwheel. We also see it displayed right here, but I don't have the option to reset it. So if you're happy with this code right here, you can click on display, click this little button, make it even bigger. That's awesome. But if you want to reset it, you got to go on the cogwheel here. Now on this screen on the left hand side, we have, this is where we're going to see any upcoming assignments. Kids see the same view. We're going to talk about assignments in a second. We'll talk about where they're going to get notified for it. Now at the top I have some draft assignments here, and we can see a little drop down here, and these are ones that I have written but I haven't sent out. So the big thing about the stream is really kind of a message board. It's great if you want to have a conversation, a digital discussion, if you want to post announcements. The stream is the place to do it. The big thing about the stream is it is for one-way communication. It's from you to the to them. They're not gonna, maybe they're having that conversation, but you're not grading it. If you're gonna be grading it, you're gonna do it in a different place, and I'll talk about that. But this is just a place for you to push out those announcements, push out, and that announcement could be, don't forget your canned food for the food drive this weekend, or hey, don't forget you have a test. But it also could be, hey, here are the slides from today's presentation. I've seen teachers use it in that way, and that certainly works. Now, I would prefer to actually put those materials, the slides, the PowerPoints, the worksheets, I would actually move them into the classwork side of things because we get some organization tools. But, some teachers, they just want to push stuff out to the kids. Here's the notes from today. And certainly announcements works for that. It also works really well for websites. I don't write down websites on the board anymore because when I tell the kids, go to Galapagos/island/turtle, 20 minutes goes by before they get there. So a lot of times I will drop that link in here and send it out to them specifically. I want to give a little shout out to Share to Classroom. It's a great little Chrome extension that will actually push out links for you and is a really helpful tool. So give that out. So here we have, let's create an announcement. And so for that, we're going to click right here where it says share something with your class. And from here, we see the fact that I can select, do I want to share it with just one class? Do I want to share it with multiple classes? Do I want to share it with all my students or individual or small groups of students? And so here, and as soon as I start typing, you notice that my post button turns on. Now coming across the bottom, we have the ability, the little paper clips, so I can attach any files from my computer, whether I drag and drop them or use the traditional file manager window that's going to pop up here. I'm going to cancel out of that. We also across the top have the ability to jump into our drive, our team drive, the different Google drives. Now if I click on the little Google Drive icon right next to the paperclip, it takes me to the same place. So it defaults to recent, but here's the upload screen that we were just at. So either one of these is essentially interchangeable. Moving to the right, we have YouTube videos. Now I do really like sending YouTube videos out to kids. I mean, I'm a huge fan of YouTube in general, but I really like doing it through here, and I'll show you why. Because when we push out a YouTube video through here, it's going to remove a lot of the clutter that comes with a YouTube video. And of course, right next to it, we have the ability to add in links, and we can have multiple things in here. I could have a document, a YouTube video, some links, of course, my message. So we can have a ton of stuff in here. Now, coming across the bottom, now if I just come over here, I have three options. I can post. Now, if I click post, it's going to send this out right now. I also have the ability to schedule this. And so whenever I'm out of the building, or honestly Monday night, I will schedule all my announcements for the rest of the week. So that way I know when they're going out, I know they're scheduled, and then it frees me up to actually be a teacher. I'm not worried about like trying to send things to the kids. I can stand at my door and greet the kids. So I really do like that. Or I can just save it as a draft, and then what it will do is it comes up here into our saved announcements, and if I at a later date want to open back up and then send it out, I can do that as well. So I mentioned I included a YouTube video here purposefully, and we noticed that this video, it's just the video itself. There are no other videos over here. There's no comments underneath here, and that's always one of those issues with YouTube, is the fact that while the video itself may be appropriate, sometimes the videos on the side or the comments underneath are not school appropriate. And so this removes that. Now, if the video has one of those ads where you wait 5 seconds and click, those will still be there. We actually saw the little ad pop up there as well, but it does remove some of that extraneous clutter, which is really, really nice. Now, one of the things I mentioned I like doing is having class discussions with my kids, and so I actually started off my school year with having a class discussion. Now, let's say that this student's response was not appropriate. So I can come over here to the three little dots, and I click on mute. and it's going to do two things for me. One, it's going to remove that student's ability to continue to comment. They can still turn in their work, they can still do their assignments, but they can't post. And I have a little box right here where I can also delete this comment in one click. Now, there's another way we can mute kids. I'll show you that in a second. But this is definitely a very helpful way as well. So, big takeaways about the stream. It's for announcements and for one-way communication from you to them. So now we're going to move over to the classwork page. In the classwork page, this is where you're going to spend a lot of time as a teacher. In terms of, this is where you're going to put your assignments, your materials. This is where you're going to put the work that the kids are doing. So, coming across the top, I want to kind of give you a basic layout of what's going on. So here on the top, we have the Create button. When we click on the Create button, we get a whole bunch of different options. We're going to come back to this button in a minute. We also have a shortcut to the Google Calendar for this class. I'm not going to click on it here because it's going to open up my Google Calendar, which has 27 million different things. And we have the Class Drive folder here as well. Now, at the top here, these are assignments that have not been given a topic. And so if you think about a file folder where you have just the files at the top normally, and then you have the folders underneath it, that's what is happening here. So these are files, individual assignments that I've created that don't have a topic. And the downside of that is, one, this can get really confusing and overwhelming for the kids, for you, especially as the year goes on. So I really, really encourage you to use topics for your stuff, because all of these, so anything that's under class materials has class materials as a topic, or quizzes has quizzes as a topic. Well, now I can, not only can I drag and drop these to order them, but I can manage it, I can organize it. And that was one of the big teacher requests that people said. Now, that brings us to a great point. How do I give Google the feedback? You know, because we have a lot of great ideas. Oh, I want to color code, or I want to do this. So if you have one of those great ideas, tell Google. They are super responsive to teacher feedback, and but a lot of the changes we've seen made are directly because of teacher feedback. In the bottom left-hand corner, you should see a little gray question mark. And here we have the ability to send feedback, and this is such a great tool. So if you have a suggestion, send it to Google, and not only that, but ask your friends and your Google Classroom peers to also send in that feedback. So the more people that Google has that says the same thing, the more likelihood that they're going to implement that choice. So I really encourage you to send Google your feedback. So we talked about the fact that you can move these categories back and forth. We have some we can rename, we can move them up and down manually with this tool, but now we can drag and drop, which is so much better. So let's come back to this Create button. So we're going to click on the Create, and we're going to click Create an Assignment. And just like we saw when we were in the stream, I can choose one class, all my classes, one student, all my students. So here we have our title, and as soon as I start typing on the title, our post button's going to turn on there. We can add in instructions, and then we have some additional things. So we have, if you've we were talking about the grading weighted categories. If you've done that, you can assign a category to the where this assignment is going to belong. You can assign it the value, the point value. Now for me, I never really know the point value a lot of times, or truly know it until I get closer to actually grading the assignment. You can come back and change this. It's not set in stone. The biggest tool here is we have the ability to set a due date, and that's really important because, so let's go and make this test assignment. So when I create a due date, and I'm going to add in a date and time, and let's make this tomorrow at 2 p.m. or 1:59. A couple things are going to happen. Students are going to get a notification in their email If they've downloaded the Google Classroom app, and I totally recommend that they do, and I recommend that you do as well, they're going to get a notification there. They're going to get a notification when they sign into Classroom. They're going to get a notification in the individual class in Classroom, and it's going to show up on their Google Calendar. So they're going to get 5 different notifications that you've created an assignment for them. So no longer is the excuse, oh, I wasn't there, or I was in the bathroom, or I didn't come in, I was sick. Doesn't matter. They got 5 notifications that said that, hey, there was an assignment there, so I don't want to hear any excuses. Okay? Good. So, the last thing, and I already talked a lot about this, the fact that we need to create a topic. So, let's say this was a quiz, we called it a test assignment, and that's going to allow us to organize it, to move it around, and that's really, really key. Down here, of course, we can add in attachments, videos, links. Now, I do want to, I'm actually going to grab just a real quick activity here, because when I've added in something here now, certainly anything you add in, you're going to want to be the owner of it, or you can upload a file. But if you're going to add in a Google Doc or a Google Slides or anything like that, so here I've attached this assignment, and we click this little drop down, we get 3 different options here. So the first one is students can view the file, and that's exactly what it sounds like. They can see it, they can't change it, they can't edit, they can't modify it. So this is great for directions, rubrics, things that of course the kids need to see, but they're not really doing anything with. Now the next option here is students can edit the file, and you want to be really careful with this option, because what that means is every kid that I am sending this assignment to will be able to edit this one file. Now, if you really want to do, like, let's say a group brainstorming session, that's a great tool. Or if you're doing small groups and you've created like a template and you're sending it to them and they're all working in the one, like, that's a great use of it. But be very careful about this, because if, let's say this was a homework assignment, well, that means the first kid would jump in there, do the work, and everybody else would see a completed document. So, when you're looking for students to individually be working on something, they're all going to do it, they're all going to turn it back into you. You're going to want to choose the make a copy for each student. So I would say you're going to use this one probably about 70% of the time, and probably this one probably 30% of the time, and then maybe like 1 or 2% this edit file. This make a copy of your student is incredible. It literally will even put the student's name on their work. What that's going to do, it's going to take your original master file, whatever I've attached here, and Google's going to make a copy of that file for every single student. And it's going to send that copy out to them, and that's what they're going to be working on. So it's not going to be your master. They're not going to work on that. They're not going to have access to their friends' work. It's only their assignment, and that's actually how Google knows when they go and click that big blue turn in button who it belongs to when it shows back up in your Google Drive. So definitely want to click that drop down. Next to our assign button, we have the same drop-down options: assign, schedule, save, draft, as we saw before. So I'm going to click this assign button because this is going to push it out right now. And it's saying, let's see, I need to select a grading category for this class. We go ahead and click assign. So I want to show you those notifications. So we can see the fact that this is due tomorrow right here. If we come to our stream, we see the fact that I posted a new assignment. We can see over here where it says upcoming. If I jump back to the classroom homepage here, we see the fact that there's a little announcement here. If I open up calendar, you'd see it on calendar. They got the email. So like I said, kids are going to get notified in a lot of different ways that they have something due. So we've eliminated that excuse. So we're back in the classwork page. I'm scrolled back up to the top. Click on that create button. So we, in addition to having assignments, one of the new features is the ability to bring in Google Forms. And you actually can make this Google form right here. You don't have to go into Google Forms separately. You can do it all from Classroom, which is awesome. Category, grades, everything. Right now you can see that our domain has the beta for the secure Chromebook testing, which is awesome. That means when you push out this quiz to kids on school managed devices, so not their personal ones, school managed only. What it's going to do is going to lock down their browser tab, so that's the only site they can go to, so they can't open up your quiz and open up other sites and search or Google the answers to your quiz, which is super awesome. And of course, why are we going to use Google Forms? Because they auto grade, and that's awesome. Anything that saves me time as a teacher, allows me to do what I love, which is teaching and working with kids, that's going to be a useful tool for me. So I am a huge fan of this. And of course, if you are using Google Classroom as your primary gradebook, you can import the grades directly into Classroom from right from this screen here. When we come back to create, we come to the question part, and we have the option to switch between multiple choice or short answer. Now, if I'm going to use this, maybe I'll use this as an exit ticket if I'm doing multiple choice, or an intro ticket. So, what was one thing you learned yesterday, or something like that. You do have the ability to grade it, which is nice, but it's only one question. So if it's anything longer than one question, I'm not going to do it here. I'm going to go back to, and I'm going to use the Google Forms. This is really great for either, like I said, intro or exit tickets, quick classroom polls like, hey, what activity we're doing on Friday, quick, temperature of the room kind of things. That's what I'm going to use this for. Do nows maybe, but I'm not going to do it for assessment. If I'm going to assess the kids, I'm going to go into Google Forms. Now, multiple choice, we do have the option students can see class summary. Of course, this will be after they answer the question. They don't get to see this until they answer the question. If I switch it to short answer, I can decide whether or not students will be able to reply to each other if we're having like a formal graded digital discussion. And that's why I mentioned you could do a digital discussion in the stream, but that's really not going to be graded. If you're grading it, you're going to do it here in the classwork tab. You also have the ability, and by the way, students will get notified if other students are going to be able to see their answer. If you've enabled this, they'll have a little red message that says, like, other kids will see your answer. And that prevents them from saying like something personal in there. Over here, we also have the ability to allow students to edit their answer after they have submitted it. Again, you can turn this on or off at your discretion. So, we've talked about Classroom. Again, I have the same abilities once I turn it on to schedule or post or save this as a draft. I'm going to X out of this. And in fact, that's automatically going to save it as a draft right here. Let me just move my camera. I'm going to go ahead and delete that assignment. Yep. So back to our create button. We talked about assignment. We talked about quiz. We talked about questions. Material. This is where you're going to put your syllabus, your, if you are sending them PowerPoints or Google Slides or other files or PDFs, and you just want them to have it. You don't really want them to, they're not doing anything with it. They're not working on it. They're not returning it to you. That's what the material is for. You notice the fact that I can assign a topic so I can manage it. I can move it in this screen, which is very helpful. But there's nothing the kids are going to return to you. And this was a new change that they made in response, like I said, to the teacher comments, because teachers there are all these little hacks and backward ways around this thing. So they finally came out with this lovely materials page. And that's going to be the perfect place for things that you're just giving to them that you'd like to be able to organize, maybe, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, but something that they're not returning back to you. And in fact, while I just mentioned the organization of this, now I have this set up, I have quizzes, summer assignments, class materials. I've seen teachers set it up like that. I've seen teachers set it up where it's week 1, week 2, week 3. I've seen some teachers where the first topic is today's work, and that teachers what the kids need to work on today is marked as today's work, and then they will, after that day, will switch the topic to, last week or week 1 or however they do it, or if unit 1 or chapter 1. There's no right way. There's no right way. It's what's going to work best for you and for your kids. So that's how to kind of tag this. And I know, different courses, the math and science, chapter basis works really well. Sometimes the liberal arts courses it's in a different manner. So certainly it's up to you as how you want to organize your Google Classroom. And the last option we have down here are the ability to reuse posts. Now, I mentioned the fact that we can copy the entire classroom from one year to the next or from one semester to the next, which is super helpful. But you also have the ability to just grab a reuse any post. You can see all my different Google Classrooms here. And I can jump into the ones, and if I had posts in them, and wow, I'm 2 for 2. Let's try this one. Hey, there we go. So I could grab this assignment, click reuse. There was that button there that said create new copies. You don't want to click that button because then you would have multiple file versions of the same file, and that goes against why we're in Google in the first place. But you'll notice the fact that I had some directions here, and my titles, those all came over as well. And so what I'll do is, my background was a high school teacher, so I had period 1, I had period 2, I had period 8. Well, I don't want period 8 to have the assignments at the same time as period 1. And so what I would do is I would come in and I would build all my assignments for my first period class. And then I would come back into 8th period and I would grab that assignment from first period and I'd bring it in because, of course, I needed to schedule it for a different time frame. But the nice part is I've already done the directions, I've already added my attachments. All I'm doing is basically scheduling it for a different time during the day. So I started first period and I'd schedule everything else out based on my first period class. Obviously, if you have multiple preps, that doesn't necessarily apply. But you can, reach into a classroom that's been archived or that's last year. You can certainly do that, which is really, really helpful. So, moving across the top here, we've talked about the last thing we didn't talk about is the topics. And this just allows you to, if you want to create a different topic, you can do that from right there. But you can also do that from within the assignments itself. So if I come over here to topic, I have the ability to create a topic here as well. So that button is a little bit redundant right here. So moving across, we talked about the stream, we talked about the classwork. So stream, one-way communication, classwork, two-way. It's from you to them, but they're going to do some work and return it back to you. So that's the big difference here. So next we're going to move over to our people page. And this was a really nice feature that Google has updated. Previously, in other editions of Classroom, teachers and students were separated. Here, everybody's in the same one, which is really nice. So teachers, so if I have a co-teacher, a student teacher, if I have a support person, maybe a learning specialist or someone from the guidance office that needs to see what the kids are doing. And I love my support staff, I truly do. But sometimes as a teacher, it was one more thing when they're, well, what does Sarah owe? What does Johnny owe? Have they done their work? Did they turn it in? And that was really, there was a lot of time I spent communicating with that support person. So now what I'm going to do is I'm instead just going to invite them into the classroom. Now, anyone that you invite into your classroom will have the same options. They'll be able to create assignments. They'll create posts. They can grade things. The only thing they can't do is delete the class. And the reason in that is because, of course, it's your class. But this is a great way. A lot of times I have administrators they ask the teachers to invite them in, so that way they have a little window into what's going on in the classroom. That co-teacher, the student teacher, this is how you're going to get them in. Now, they do need to have an email address on your domain. So if they're a support person provided by an outside agency, they're going to need to talk to the IT person and get a school email address, so that way you can add them as a co-teacher. I also see sometimes grade level partners will jump into each other's classrooms, or next door neighbors, best friends, something like that. So a lot of times if maybe you're away from your computer for whatever reason, or if you're having an issue, having that other person who can jump into that classroom and post that assignment for you or send that for you is really helpful. So that's definitely a nice thing right there. Coming down to the bottom here, we have our students. Now, obviously, I only have 2 students in this class right now, so it's not terribly exciting. But from here, I can select my kids, and I can actually do a bulk email. I can select a student, and I can mute them, just like I showed you before. I wish that worked in real life. This is also where, if we're doing the class summary, the parent and guardian summaries, this is where you would invite the guardian. I don't tend to do that a lot because, again, you have to manually type or cut and paste your emails. It's very time consuming. Over here we have 3 little dots. So again, I can email, invite, remove from here as well. I can sort either by first or last name, which is nice. Now this little button right here, invite students, is so tempting. Do not use this button. There are only probably 1 or 2 times where I would actually use this button, and I'll tell you why. If I have a kid and I need to get that kid into my classroom, I'm going to show them this Google Class code. It's a one-time code. They don't need to write it down. They don't need to take it home. That they're going to join. They're going to go into classroom.google.com. They're going to click on the little plus sign. They're going to click on join a class, and it's going to say ask teacher for the code, and that's how your kids are going to get into. Please do not manually add in your kids. It takes way too long, and it doesn't actually add them in. All it does is it's going to generate an email that says Mr. Heinz would like you to join his 5th period biology class. They still have to click the link and join. And so because it's not an automatic enrollment, the only time I'd really use that feature is, let's say I get that email from the front office that says, hey, you get a new student, they're starting on Monday. I might invite that kid just so when that kid shows up, I can say, hey, check your email, the code, you've already been invited. If I didn't want to have to show them the code or something like that. That's about the only time I will manually type in a kid's email address. I just want to do it. That's it. So I can, if I wanted to jump to a student's work, I can do that right from here. So I clicked on the student's name, and I get right to their assignments. I can filter this, what they've turned in, whether they're missing, what they've returned with a grade. So let's say we've all had that, well, what does my son or daughter owe? So I can come in here to filters missing, and I can do a screenshot of this, or I can come up here and I can click the little email button, and I can choose to email, and if I added in a parent's email, the guardian's email will turn on, but I'll just say student, include work summary, and send. And the cool thing is they're going to get a whole email list that says this is what you owe, this is what you've turned in. I don't have to write it down for them. It puts that accountability on the kids. And if mom or dad ask, well, did you let them know what they owed? Yes, I did, and here's the proof. I emailed them, and here's the file. Certainly from here, I could jump into an individual assignment. So we could certainly do that. But I actually want to come back to this in a second. Let me just jump back. So here we are at Peoples. And so certainly if I just want to look up one kid, I could do that from here. I also have the grades over here, and this is where I can see all the assignments and all my students, if there's an overall grade. And this is also where I can jump into the individual assignments in terms of for grading. And that's been the kind of the biggest change that we've seen, is there's a brand new grading layout here. So obviously I can change the point value of assignments. Now I can start grading a student's assignment as soon as they turn it into me. This is all done based on permission. So essentially what happens is when a student turns in something, it takes them as the owner and it makes you the owner. And so I can start editing, making comments. The kid can't see that until I click that return button. Now, one of the things I really like to do is when I return things, I want to of course leave comments on their assignment. And so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll select all my A's, and then what I'll do is I'll click on that return button, and it allows me to add a private comment. So for all my A students, I'll say, hey, great job, you knocked it out of the park. And then for all my B's, I'll select and say, okay, you're almost there. And everybody else will be like, all right, see me after school or keep working. The kids get a nice private comment, certainly, and then they also get, but I did it in a bulk manner. I didn't have to individually do it. Now, one of Alice Keeler's big tips is when she's commuting with kids, She always makes sure that she starts any comment with her initials. The reason being is that way if the kid responds, she can see the fact that it doesn't start with their initials, and so she knows, oh, I need to respond to the kid. And anytime she sees her initials, she knows, oh, I sent a message, they haven't responded. If you grade an assignment, the kids are like, I don't see anything, you probably have to come back and return it. Now, let's say these students did not turn in the work. Maybe they forgot, and I'm feeling very generous, and I want to remind them. I can actually select all the kids, and we can sort this by first name, last name, whether they turned in it or not. I'll select those kids, and I'm going to click on this little email button. And what that's going to do is going to do two things. One, it's going to open up my Gmail or whatever email system you're using, and it's going to take all the students that I've selected and it's going to put them in as a blind carbon copy, which I absolutely love. The reason this is so nice is because blind carbon copy, other recipients can't see who else got that email. So only, and also I use blind carbon copy anytime I'm emailing my parents or anything like that. Because then it also eliminates the reply all button. We've all seen people where they hit that reply all and all of a sudden they're saying a personal message but they're saying it to the whole group. This prevents that. It also, so this assignment happened to be called Summer Writing Assignment, it put that in the subject line. And so now if I'm using canned responses, which is a great tool in Gmail, my canned response will probably say something like, Dear student, the above assignment is late or needs to be turned in soon, or whatever my reason for emailing them is going to be there. Now canned responses, I have them turned on. They live down here in Gmail, and these are basically pre-written emails, and so it allows you to drop in pre-written emails. So something like, hey, whatever the assignment in the subject line is due by the end of tomorrow's class. But it's a nice little reminder, and it also gives you that verification that yes, you did do your due diligence and reach out to the students. So here we are back in the assignment section. We notice the fact that I've given partial grades, 86.6. It used to be you can only give grades in whole numbers. No longer the case. I know a lot of teachers like using the Google Drive view, and so this will actually open up this particular assignment in Google Drive, and we'll see, and it'll pop up here. And there we go. Some teachers find that very useful, but this is the coolest and the brand new change here. So, as I click on a student's assignment, it's going to open it up, and this brand new grading window is going to show up here. And I'm actually going to move my camera over here for a second. So now I can, at the top, I can toggle between different students. So I can jump from one assignment or one student to the next student. I also can use the arrow keys here to go back and forth, which is very helpful. I see the fact that this assignment has not been returned. I could return it to the kid, and we can return assignments ungraded. So maybe they didn't finish their work. I can click this button and say, hey, you didn't finish it. Keep going. I have a little drop down here for multiple students, or I can just return this one student's work. Here I have a sample student document, and I want to provide some feedback to the student. So as we're going through, I can use the little comment button. Now I can also highlight and do Control-Alt-M to jump to the comment field as well. And the cool thing is we now have a comment bank. And now this is going to be the other reason I talked about why I wanted to create a new Google Classroom every marking period or every semester. This comment bank is going to get packed, especially if you use this all the time. And if you use the same Google Classroom from September 1st to June 15th, it's going to be a mess. But if you create a new Google Classroom every marking period or every semester, this comment bank is going to get wiped clean, and so it's going to be a lot easier for you to use. So now, as a former English teacher, I was really good at circling things and saying, well, this is a run-on sentence, and I would just write RO. Well, now I can not only write RO, but I can include what a run-on sentence is, and if I want, even a link to, hey, go watch this, Khan Academy video, or go watch this YouTube video on how to fix your mistake. So to bring up our comments, I'm going to use the hashtag symbol, and as soon as I hit hashtag, it brings up all my comments. Now you'll notice that a lot of my comments I started with the, for example, the quote one. I started with QT. One, that was I was already in the habit of using those abbreviations. But the other reason I do that, if I didn't have the QT here, what this would be going off of would be the P in please. And we can see when I hit the P, it's bringing up all these different things that have the letter P in them. So I still am a big fan of using the shortened abbreviations in the beginning. I then have my comment, and I can post it in there, and now we have a comment for the student, which is great. I can add in new comments by clicking the plus sign, and of course adding in different. Now, one feature that I would really love, and I don't know, maybe you want to put it in that little question mark down below. I would love an ability to manage my comment bank, to have folders, so I could have like my grammar comments and my subject comments, and I would love that, to see that update. So I don't know, send that to Google, maybe they'll do it. If I come back here, I have the ability to add in their grade. We see I could add in a partial grade if I so desire. I can change the total number of points. So, I said 100, but maybe this assignment is only worth 90. I can also then provide a private comment here as well to the student. Now, I showed you how to do them in a bulk format earlier, which is what I really like, and that bulk format comment is probably going to be something along the lines of like, please see my comments in your work. That's what I want them to look at. I want them to see these comments. But I know kids aren't going to do that. So, one of the things I found is a lot of times I will bury the due now or their assignment, tomorrow's assignment. I'll bury it down here, somewhere in their file. Like, oh, by the way, your due now is in last night's homework's comments. And so forcing the kids to open up last night's homework, forcing them to read through my comments to find the due now. And I do that a lot. So once I'm gonna jump back to our gradebook here. How do we get our grades from here into another format? Now certainly we can come back to our class and we can click on grades and we can see this right here, but maybe I want to import this directly into my gradebook. So what we can do is click on this little cogwheel right here. Now I know it says import grades. This was a Google form. I auto graded it and I could pull in the grades from the Google form. But how do I get these grades into like my gradebook? So this little cogwheel in the assignment, and I can download a CSV that's a comma separated value, so an Excel file essentially. I can download just one assignment, all the assignments, or I can open up in Sheets. And some grade programs you can then take that CSV file and upload it into them directly. Honestly, I'm a big fan of just having either doing split screens or having two monitors. And so I'll have my Google Classroom gradebook on one, and then I'll have my real gradebook, my Power School, my eSchool book, whatever, on the other, and I'll sit there just manually 19, 23, 18. It makes it a lot faster. When you get into the downloading and then the uploading, a lot of times, if the student's name is spelled differently or there's a nickname, it kicks out errors, and it's just not easy. And it's just faster to sit there and just have them both up at the same time. If you'd like a video on how to split screen, I've made one on the AOP Tech page. You can find that Google AOP Tech split screen Chromebook, and it will pop up. And I also will put a link to that video in the description below. So that being said, we've walked through the stream, classwork, people, and grading pages. I probably didn't get to half of this stuff at Petency. So if you're watching this video, I certainly thank you for that, and I thank you for either finding the workshop on YouTube or at Petency. If you came and attended, I really appreciate that. I would love to hear from you if you have thoughts, comments, suggestions. If you need any additional help or pointers, I'm happy to help out. You can reach me at aheinz@archphila-oce.org. So thank you so much. It's been an awesome time presenting to you. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.